Welcome to Diary of a CIO. My name is Sam Ebrahim. I'm the New South Wales Executive General Manager for 𝗔𝘂𝘀𝘁𝗿. The purpose of this podcast is after 20 years in the industry, I've seen a multitude of content available around CIOs and their technology transformations, their technology stack, agile versus waterfall. I recognize the gap in the market to understand and hear the story behind the CIO. And ultimately to inspire the next generation of technology leaders coming through. With that in mind, I'd like to introduce my guest today, Kurt Brissett. Very proud to have Kurt on the show today, as he is the CIO of the Year for 2024 and someone that was introduced to me through my network last year, and I've really enjoyed our conversation so far. So welcome to the show, Kurt, and just a brief introduction to yourself would be appreciated.
Thanks very much for that, Sam. Great to be here. This is my first podcast in person.
Amazing.
So there you go. Done a few of them virtually, but nice to actually do this in person. Listen, I've valued our friendship over the years. And listen, this doesn't feel at all like the Joe Rogan podcast, though.
Hopefully not.
As long as you don't start giving me a cigar through it. But just by way of introduction, for those of you that I haven't met, my name's Kurt Brissett. I'm the newly appointed Chief Digital and Information Officer at 𝗬𝗲𝗍, and formerly the Chief Technology and Information Officer at Transport for New South Wales, where I spent the last 8.5 years.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And the purpose of today's podcast is to really hear your story, which I think when we first sat down and we talked around this podcast and talked around your background, I was captivated by your story and the I suppose the journey you've been on to where you are today. So I'm very keen and very much looking forward to talking through that. And again, like with most people on my podcast, it normally starts with, I've got an atypical background of where I became today, which is now turning into typical backgrounds. So your background is very interesting because you started out in the military at the age of 17, and that was your inroad into technology. So could you share the story about how that came about?
Yeah. And it's funny you should say that. That's how I was going to start this. I think I've got a bit of a unique background, but maybe it's not that unique. So I grew up in rural New South Wales in a little country town called 𝗬𝗂𝘀𝗀𝗏, which is just the other side of Kangaroo Valley on the south coast. It's so grew up on a little 5-acre plot of land. Both my parents worked; they had to work full time just to make ends meet. We grew up in a great town, very very tight in terms of the community itself. Went to the local primary and high school there, but really there wasn't much in the way of job opportunities there. So a lot of the people from my cohort that went through high school ended up in different locations throughout New South Wales and Australia to go to university. So at the time, though, as I was going through and my high schooling, there was a Army recruiter that came along to our school. So I think I was in year 10, so I would have been sort of 15 or 16 at the time. Anyway, he pitched this idea of being able to go through a selection process to be selected as for admission into the Australian Defence Force Academy.
Yep.
And for those of you unfamiliar with it, it's basically our military officer university. So it's a tri-service establishment based in Canberra, where those in Army, Navy, Air Force who are looking to become officers go through and do their undergraduate study effectively. Yep. And so at the time, I remember thinking, this sounds interesting. It's no strings attached. I might go through and do the selection process. I enjoyed school. I was fairly sharp at school, and I was a little bit of an all-rounder. So I love sport, loved keeping active and being fit, and I loved rugby league. So I played competitive rugby league through my schooling and represented the state and whatnot. So this idea of being paid to keep fit and do something worthwhile and ultimately lead soldiers really appealed to me. So I had a bit of a bent to leadership.
Yeah.
So I was the school captain at primary school and at high school, so I enjoyed that side of things. I liked motivating people and taking them on a bit of a journey to achieve something tangible.
Yeah.
And so and that was the same through my sport and academic career. So anyway, so I thought, oh, listen, I'll give this a crack, and we'll see how it goes. I ended up being selected for the scholarship to go to Australian Defence Force Academy when I was in year 11. And then after getting my results from a HSC, I had a bit of a decision point as to what I wanted to do. So I was toying the idea of studying law at uni, or going down the road of joining the army through ADFA. At the time, I remember just thinking, you know, I don't want to necessarily be indebted, and I didn't want to be a burden on the family.
Yeah.
When it comes to going through university. So many of my mates I knew went through uni. It was expensive. Their folks were basically having to sponsor them through the whole thing, and
Yeah.
it was a real challenge. So I wanted the opportunity to get to have my university sponsored, do something I enjoyed, and have a guaranteed job at the end. And I thought, listen, I'll give this a crack.
Okay.
So
And what was the actual studies you chose there? Was it technology?
yeah, so at the time, so I did a Bachelor of Business, majoring in management. There was information systems and technology elements to it. However, it was predominantly economics management
Okay.
based.
Sure.
So I did that as my undergraduate, and then following that, went across, and it's only across the hill, to the Royal Military College Duntroon, which is where for all Army officer cadets, they spend 12 months of doing intensive officer training, where
Yep.
you're basically taught in all things Army tactics. You're taught leadership. You're taught to be trained on all the weapons and
Yep.
equipment systems. So yeah, so that was great. And then at the end of that, you basically have to nominate what stream you want to go to in the army. And I chose the Royal Australian Signals Corps, which
Yep.
is the technology arm of the military. And then underwent my core specific training after that. So I spent about 9 or so months down in Melbourne,
Yep.
where we did intensive training on all of the technology systems that we would be operating and managing as leaders in Royal Australian Signals Corps. And then eventually was posted to my first job after 4.5 years of training.
Where was your first posting?
Yeah, so first posting was to a signal squadron, it was 145 signal squadron. So I was effectively the technology arm that's of the army that supports the logistics elements.
Okay.
So basically all of the hospitals, the transportation arm of the army, all of the logistics that goes into it. So wherever we deploy, obviously there's a logistics tail and
Yeah.
capability. And so the technology to ensure that operates is required. So so I was leading a cross-functional technology team when I first joined. So I was a 22-year-old, leading a team of about 40.
Wow.
And these were seasoned operators who many of whom were 30, 40 years old, many years of experience in the military. Within about 3 months, we were deployed to the Solomon Islands, where we deployed for about 8 months to basically provide all the technology and command and control systems needed to support the deployed headquarters in Honiara.
Yep.
As part of one of the initial pushes over there in support of the.
What was it like being a 22-year-old leading a sizable team of many of which were nearly WH?
Yeah.
How do you win the respect of those people in a short space of time?
Yeah, it's a good question. And nothing really prepares you for it. I mean, all of your training as an army officer cadet prepares you on the mechanics or the theory and they do their best to put you in situations to ensure that your leadership approach is fine tuned, but nothing can really prepare you for doing the actual job itself. So a lot of it is listening and trusting. You have what's called a troop sergeant or a platoon sergeant if you're in the combat corps, and they're essentially your senior soldier. They're your 2IC. They're your trusted confidant, and they're there to basically guide you and provide you with the mentoring, and it pays dividends to listen to them, and so I did, and tried to soak in as much as what I could. But ultimately, you're there to also make decisions and lead and make hard calls. But it was great. I loved every minute of it.
Amazing. What in terms of, I suppose, the technology piece of the actual military then? So what was your role there in terms of supporting the actual military operations?
Yeah, it's a few-fold. So you have primarily you're there to lead a team. So a cross-functional technology team of anywhere from sort of 15 to about 40, depending on the team and the nature of the mission itself. And you're there to lead this team of who have a myriad of different skills and experience, everything from radio communications through to secure network information systems, through to satellite communications, cyber, drone technology, information surveillance, reconnaissance systems. It's very diverse.
Yeah.
It basically spans the entire technology spectrum in a lot of respects. So you're there to lead those individuals and make sure that they're delivering cohesive and coordinated outcomes.
Yeah.
But you're also there to provide planning, advice, and support to the deployed headquarters. So you've got senior individuals from a myriad of different areas of defence who work together in a combined joint headquarters. And so you're there to provide them with technology, advice and guidance when it comes to strategy, planning, and ultimately ensure that the command and control of a mission or a deployment is supported.
And those deployments and those missions, were they predominantly humanitarian or special forces missions? What were you assigned to?
Yeah, a myriad of different things over the course of my career. So the first posting that I had was primarily supporting the logistics support force, and that was in support of peacekeeping, peacemaking types of operations. The first one being Solomon Islands. However, I was also deployed in support of our combined joint mission over in the Middle East in 2003. So I once again led a technology team in support of the combined joint headquarters over in Baghdad in Iraq for about 8 months.
Yep.
So that was a very different mission set with different objectives, and we had teams deployed right across the Middle East. And so that was my first foray into a combat zone, and then from there I was posted into different teams and squadrons across the Australian Defence Force, and spent the back end of my career in Special Operations Command in support of the commando elements, and a lot of the work that we did was based in Afghanistan.
Okay, interesting. You never really think of technology as being an integral part of kind of military, kind of special operations and forces overseas. It's also, I think when I speak to CIOs as well, and they talk about technology, I think a lot of the time that they tell their teams is, we're not saving lives. Your story is very, very different. So I think the technology piece in what you do is critical to protecting and supporting the lives of the people serving the military. How do you prepare yourself for that from a, I suppose, a mental perspective, knowing that you need to be on your A game and everything you do matters. Like the smallest detail can make the biggest impact to people who are using your technology. How do you prepare yourself for that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So when I was in the military, a lot of it is to do with ensuring that your teams understand the importance of what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's not lost on them, obviously, the gravity of the decisions that they make and the importance of delivering technology for a deployed combat unit.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it is about reiterating and linking the strategy and what our mission was to what they were doing on the ground.
Yeah.
And I found that to be very powerful in terms of aligning people and establishing a shared consciousness in terms of what we were doing and why.
Yep.
But you're right. When I left the military, it wasn't life or death, but the same process that I undertook was apparent in that I needed to understand what the business strategy or drivers were, ensure that was articulated in a fashion that my team understood it and could immediately link what they were doing to the broader objectives at hand.
Yeah.
And whilst the implications of decisions may have been different, the actual process that you go through,
Yeah.
and ensuring that you have a team that is cross-functional and cross-skilled and that is aware of what the broader mission is and that who trust one another, and individuals who put the needs of the team above their own. Those things don't change regardless of the environment.
Yep.
So that's the approach I took.
And how long were you in the military for?
So I was in the military all up for 15 years. Just on 12 of that was full time, and then I transitioned to the reserves. Yep.
And what was the moment that you decided I want to leave the military and that was going to the private sector? What was that thought process?
Yeah. So it was something that I anticipated that I would always do. That I saw my time in the military as being something that I wanted to do when I was fairly young. It would provide me with, fantastic opportunity to do something really worthwhile.
Yep.
And that had purpose, and for me to see the world and have amazing experiences and to be educated.
Yeah.
But I guess I always had it in my mind that invariably I'd get to a point where I'd want to transition into the private sector or the commercial sector to use those skills and experience in a different context.
Yeah.
And, invariably settle down, because the military was great. It was, provided me so many opportunities. But towards the back end of your career, it's, so in the roles that I had, it was very difficult to do much planning. Like, you didn't know what you were doing 2 weeks ahead.
Yeah.
So to settle down and to establish a family and a lot of those things, which is what I wanted to do, was always going to be challenging. And I've got so much respect now for members of the military and for my soldiers who had families and children, who
Amazing.
deployed and who balanced their competing priorities in that fashion. Just utmost respect for that. But that was something that I knew would invariably mean that I needed to transition.
And I suppose the world that you started your career into, the private sector, very different. Yeah. What was the transition like for you, leaving the military and then I suppose trying to get your first opportunity in the private sector? What was that like for you?
Yeah, I found it really challenging. And listen, I was fortunate in the military. I'd chosen a career pathway that armed me with very relevant skills, and particularly in an industry that was growing and where there was a real demand for that. But I found it so difficult to land my first job. I think that I probably applied for, it'd have to be close to about 50 roles.
Wow.
when as I was leaving, and I probably had about 10 interviews.
Yep.
And in eventually there was I remember one person who looked past I guess my career profile and saw something in me that they thought, oh, you know what, I think they're going to be a good fit.
Yeah.
And it was then that I landed my first job at Deloitte.
Amazing.
And yeah.
Do you think that's because, and I speak to lots of people that have been in an industry for say 15, 20 years, and they feel that they're typecast in a particular industry and they struggle to get an opportunity outside. Do you think, I suppose, looking back, is that because the people that you were talking to didn't understand or appreciate your value? Do you think it was the other side of you not understanding or appreciating the value you can offer them in the right way as well? Or do you think it was a combination of the both?
I think it was a combination of the two.
Yeah.
I certainly wasn't prepared and ready
Yep.
to make that transition. Whilst I was psychologically ready, it wasn't necessarily translating in terms of the way that I was communicating my experience, both in written and verbal form. It just wasn't cutting through.
Yeah.
So that was on me, and I now provide coaching and mentoring to veterans who are looking to transition, and that's something that I really reiterate that's something that they can do, that is in their control, to ensure that they're putting their best foot forward and they're articulating what their skills and experience are and the value of that.
Yeah.
But certainly I think that there's certain stigmas and prejudices involved when it comes to individuals from any walk of life or any experience set from whatever industry it is. So often it's too easy to just pigeonhole people and say, oh, listen, I want someone with this particular skill or qualification, and they must come from this particular industry. That I want the perfect fit. And so often what happens is that the potential of that individual and all of the softer skills that they sort of bring, whether it be their discipline or the planning skills that they might bring, or the ability to influence stakeholders and be an excellent team player. A lot of that is not valued during that process.
It's quite typical in technology. Ironically, there's a big focus on technology skills and qualifications in technology for technology roles. However, they're the easier things to teach. You can teach people technology skills. You can put people through qualifications, but you can't teach a lot of the softer skills. You talked about discipline and structure and mindset. So I think it's an industry challenge that I think a lot of companies do struggle to look past. What was your role at Deloitte? Your first role at Deloitte? What were you doing there?
Yeah, so I was brought on in a delivery function. So I was working on a number of different projects, programs, predominantly in the technology implementation and change space. It was funny. The first project I get was one in Papua New Guinea, Port Moresby, of all places. So I think my bosses at the time looked at my background and they sort of said, "Oh, listen, we think that this," and it was an infrastructure refresh project that I was delivering over in PNG. And as luck would have it, the night before I was due to fly out for Port Moresby, there was a military coup where there was a standoff between the actual Defence Force itself, those in support of the current Prime Minister, and those who were supporting his opponent. And, they closed everything down. They basically closed the city down. I wasn't sure whether or not I was even going to be able to land in there.
Wow.
The only difference this time was that instead of bringing a sidearm in, I was armed with my laptop. So that was an interesting first foray into the private sector. But it was.
And it's an interesting story around I think Indonesia and Jakarta. There's a story of one of your private sector deployments with Deloitte. Are you able to share some information and details?
That one wasn't. Actually, that was when I was still in the military. Happy to share it, but it was an interesting one actually. So it was in 2007, and it was for those people that might remember it, so there was a airline crash in 𝗬𝗂𝘀𝘁𝗿,
Yeah.
and it was a Garuda airline that went down. Essentially, what happened was that the pilot overshot the runway and was coming in too fast. Basically, landed halfway down and cleared off the end of the tarmac,
Yeah.
and the front half of the aircraft just exploded. Killed most of the people on board. There was 5 Australian diplomats that were on board, and so at short notice, I remember getting a phone call at 4 o'clock in the afternoon,
Yeah.
an hour or so after it had actually happened, that I needed to mobilise a team and deploy over there in support of that mission. Essentially, the government wanted to ensure that the identification and repatriation
Yeah.
of those individuals who were unfortunately killed was conducted, and it was off the back of a incident that happened in Iraq actually at the time. So there was a soldier by the name of 𝗔𝗂𝘀𝗁𝗁 who tragically died over in Baghdad, and there was unfortunately a mix up with his repatronage.
Okay.
And so the government at the time were very concerned about how this mission was going to be conducted to ensure that it was done correctly.
Yeah.
And so I led the defence team and provided all the technology support in support of this mission. We worked with the Australian Federal Police Department, Federal DFAT, and also the local security forces to ensure that was done. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. So the flight that we were supposed to go back on it was a military Hercules that was going to be dropping us off. It became unserviceable. So the only flight that was available it was about 11 p.m. that night. By the time it was the Prime Minister's Learjet. So he put that up, and the defence team that went over to coordinate it. And also, unfortunately, friends and family of the individuals who had died were also on the same flight, and so we all went across together. It was it's just one of those moments I'll never forget.
Yeah, I can imagine. How have you found your time of transferring your technology skills to the private sector? Was it easy for you? Was it kind of a significant change in terms of, I suppose, the technology landscape you've come from to what the private sector kind of use?
Yeah. Very. It was different. Whilst in the military, the roles that I did in the military, what it did was it prepared me and got me to think about technology across the entire spectrum. So regardless of what technology, medium, or domain, we led, technology development, we did procurement, we did a lot of the different aspects of delivering and deploying technology-based solutions.
The process itself,
the process
it's the
itself,
same. I suppose the technology and the platforms would be slightly different.
That was very different, and so that was a learning curve for me. But it was more so the leadership style as well. That was the big thing that I found. I was used to coming from an environment where the individuals that you led and that you worked with, they were all on the same page. They had common training, common language. They were there. They generally put the needs of the team above their own.
Yeah.
They were there for the right reasons. If you weren't on that same page, you were quickly weeded out. In the private sector, they're very different.
Yeah.
And some of the roles that I played initially were leading programs and projects in very much a matrix style organisation.
Did you struggle to, I suppose, the style of the military and I suppose the hard leadership style, and you transfer that into the private sector? You could be sitting in front of HR trying to explain yourself. Well, did you have to soften your approach, or how did you adapt?
I did, but it was, part of it was the art of influencing and motivating without necessarily having direct management accountability for an individual, and I think that's what the military does very well, though, And so I'd lent on this ability to be able to motivate and bring people on and to form teams of people that were there for the right reason and to sell the idea of the why.
Yeah.
So all of that was actually very applicable. But I found it difficult because there's always individuals, whether it be in whatever organisation or context, who've got alternate objectives
Yeah.
and the like. So yeah, it was a learning curve, that's for sure.
Keen to delve into your leadership, I suppose, qualities as a bit further as well. But before we do it, is there any, I suppose, people listen to this podcast similar to yourself in terms of coming out of a particular industry after a significant period of time and either challenged or struggling to break into another industry and get that first opportunity? What advice would you give the people listening to this podcast who are in a similar situation to what you were?
Yeah. So what's something that I didn't do that I would encourage a lot of people, whether it be individuals leaving the military or emergency services or whatever walk of life, and they're looking to take up a different career, is to reach out and listen to individuals that have either made the transition themselves
Yeah.
or that are where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And lean on those individuals, establish relationships, network, ask as many questions as possible. I'm always a big fan of seeking advice and guidance and learning through the mistakes that other people have made,
Yeah.
rather than having to, unfortunately go through the same process yourself.
Yeah.
So ask questions and networks are just so important. They really are. So that's what I'd encourage people to do.
Thank you. And I think leadership, and whether this is kind of military or private sector, I think when you're in an organization and a new leader comes on board, the ability, I suppose, to build a connection with the existing team as a newbie can be challenging. So looking back to your days in the military where you're trying to do that as a 22-year-old, what did you learn from that you brought forward to your private sector experience in terms of how to build the trust of people when you're the new person on the block?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's one of the good things about the military, I think, is that often people think that, listen, particularly those individuals that might have been in the military for quite some time, that they think that, listen, they've only done the one job for X number of years. In the military, what they do well is that they ensure that people are provided with a well-rounded experience or career. So every 2 or 3 years, you're generally posted, or you change roles.
Yeah,
and that might require you to change location, completely different city. You're certainly doing a different job, certainly with a different team, and generally speaking, if you're progressing and doing all the right things, you will move into more senior roles by virtue of the career continuum. So that will happen. The beauty of that is it means that you need to be very versatile, and your ability to make friends, your ability to form teams, to learn things, new things, whether it be a new job or new skills or new processes or new systems, you've got to do it rapidly.
Yeah.
Because you don't necessarily have time. And often, as was the case with me, you're often deployed or put in really foreign, challenging, uncertain environments. So your ability to form these teams and get them to buy in to what you're doing, and invariably to trust you.
Yeah.
Trust you to make decisions on their behalf often is paramount. So the way I went about it was, whenever I started a new job, I was there to listen first up. Don't assume anything. Don't force my previous experiences on the team. It's about understanding the people, who they are, their family situation, everything that went around them. Because that's another thing the military does really well, is they realise their people are their most important asset. And if you've got a team member who is having challenges on the home front or outside their work environment that's impacting on their ability to perform, to form as part of a team, then that ultimately impacts the capability of the entire troop or squadron or whatnot.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, and by doing that, getting to know your people, getting to know what makes them tick, what motivates them, you start to break down the barriers. They start to trust you on another level, and coupled with trying to rapidly get up to speed on the job and the task at hand, and leading by example, so that they can see that every minute of every day you're trying your best and you're doing what's in the interest of the team, then that engenders once again that degree of trust and camaraderie.
Yeah.
And so that was the approach that I took.
Nice. And something that's come up in previous podcasts is the concept of a guiding star. Something that you kind of, I suppose, whether that's curiosity or the desire to learn. What's been your guiding star through your career that's enabled you, or I suppose supported your decision making in terms of what next?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the biggest thing, and I probably only realized it upon reflection now, what's the common thing that has always drawn me to a particular role or an opportunity? And invariably it's been that I've always been drawn towards organizations or roles that have purpose.
Yep.
Where what you're doing matters,
Mm-hmm.
and invariably you're doing it for a reason that is not just, it's not benefiting yourself, but you're benefiting others, whether it be your team or society at large, or the citizens of a state.
Mm-hmm.
There's something important about it, and where what I've been doing, I've had an immense sense of job satisfaction out of it. So it's been generally delivering something at scale, and that you're proud to talk about. There's the analogy that, if at a barbecue you can't talk about what you're doing in a way that people sort of understand and can relate to, then maybe in the wrong line of work.
Yeah, I agree.
So I can honestly say that, in all the roles that I've done, I've been able to have that conversation and be proud of what I've done.
Yeah. I think if looking through your career, there's always organizations have a tangible asset or outcome, like construction. You spent a significant period of time at Transport for New South Wales. Can you share, I suppose, some of your proud moments there and what you did? Yeah,
it was great. So it was one of those times where, once again, so I started at Transport in 2016, and it was in a delivery executive role, heading up the back end of the rollout of Opal, which, for those people unfamiliar with it, is our statewide ticketing system for public transport. So it's the way people access and pay for public transport. It was big. It was high profile. It was at scale. It was something that I knew that had a real positive benefit, and it was something I just wanted to be part of.
Yeah.
And so that drew me into transport, into this role, and then invariably it allowed me to then take on other roles and opportunities. So off the back of Opal, we then looked at, well, what's next?
Yeah.
How can we take the next step in order to improve the digital citizen experience and make public transport even easier to use and to access, whether you'd be a regular commuter or a tourist or an infrequent traveller. And we saw this move towards the adoption of contactless credit and debit card payments across the payments industry, and just the ubiquity and the accessibility that particular technology and medium afforded customers. So we decided to then upgrade our entire network and make it contactless payments enabled. And so we were the first transport jurisdiction in the Southern Hemisphere to do that. And
I think Transport's got, correct me if I'm wrong, it's got one of the most complex pricing systems in terms of the distance, concessions, everything as well. I think I've heard from different people it's one of the most complexes in the world.
It is complex. I think
Yeah.
most states probably just think that their own system is the most
Yeah,
complex,
I'm
but
sure.
it's certainly not straightforward.
Yeah.
But what it is that we've got a system that automatically calculates pricing based on mode, based on time of day, based on distance, in a way that is completely consistent, accurate, and intuitive, and is trusted by our travelling public. And because of that, the reputation of Opal has been incredible. I think at one point in time, and I don't know if this is correct, but don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. I was told by one of our marketing folk that Opal was the second most recognised brand in New South Wales, behind McDonald's of all things. But
Wow,
there
I
you
can
go.
imagine. I can appreciate and understand that.
So we rolled out contactless payments off the back of that, which was amazing. That then opened up the ability for the technology sector to innovate on top of this platform that we created. So we created this open, interoperable platform that used payment protocols.
Yeah.
And then the likes of your Apples and your Samsungs and your Garmins and all of these companies were then able to innovate in terms of the form factor, whether it be different type of watch or different type of phone or different type of tablet, that could then be automatically interoperable with our system. Yeah, which was fantastic.
It's amazing when you got things as simple as getting a bus or getting the train, and like now in your current role, just building a building. How technology is an integral part of that, and how innovation can really disrupt what is just more traditional ways of just living your life.
Well, it is. It's advancements in technology now is in some instances driving innovation. So there used to be this whole concept of innovation is top down. But increasingly, you're starting to see technology opening up doors and opportunities for businesses to transform themselves and differentiate themselves and provide a much better customer experience in whatever way, shape, or form, and making good strategic decisions around what technologies and platforms and what role you want to play in terms of a technology team within a company is paramount, because the years that follow invariably are impacted by that. We made some good strategic decisions up front within transport that have enabled us to continue to innovate on top of that.
Yeah, amazing. And now, I suppose, talking about the CIO of the Year award. So I interviewed Sheridan Ware, CIO of the Year for 2023.
Listen, and Sheridan's amazing. You've had some heavy hitters on this show, mate. I'm feeling very inadequate at the moment. I'll just put that out there.
What did that mean for you? And were you expecting it? Is that something you prepared for and went into the evening thinking you maybe be in the top 10, top 5? What was it like for you?
Listen, it was a surreal night. It was bizarre. It was the first time that I'd ever attended the awards.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, it was the first time I've ever been nominated for the awards. So didn't know what to expect. I was just quite frankly happy to be there.
Yeah.
And I had the fortune of being able to bring some of my team to the awards as well, which was great, because my team was up for the best, I think it was digital customer experience, I think. And so they've, full credit goes to them. They're an amazing group of people. So it was nice to be able to share that moment with them. But I had no expectations going into it. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with those awards, it's a little bit like the Brownlows, where you start to, they do the 50 to 1 invariably. And I was, by the time they got to about 10, I was starting to get a little bit nervous that I might have to actually get up and make a speech, which was a little bit daunting, but it was amazing honour. Yeah. And full credit goes to my team, and it was lovely to be able to share that moment with them. And I made sure that they were suitably embarrassed also and came up on the stage with me.
Take the spotlight off yourself.
That's right.
It's interesting because I think I spoke to quite a few people on this podcast who have won awards in the CIO top 50, and the main word that comes out of their mouths is team. So it's not a CIO of the Year award. It's my award and it's my accolade. Everyone talks about their team, like you said. You took your team to the awards, not knowing you were going to win.
No.
How does your team enable you to be successful? Enables your success?
Yeah. It's one of these things where your people and your team is everything.
Yeah.
Regardless of what industry, and a lot of the analogies go back to are equally applicable to things such as sport and whatnot. Any high performing team, regardless of where it is, you need a team that invariably possess the skills, the knowledge, the attributes to deliver on something that is bigger than yourselves, and you want those individuals to be complementary.
Yeah.
In so many different respects, whether it be complementary skill sets, but you want them to be committed to a common purpose.
Yep.
And to have this shared consciousness around use of information and use of systems and use of processes. And ultimately, you want the team to be selfless in so many respects, because I've seen it before, and where you have individuals that aren't necessarily on the same page, it is so disruptive. So I'm very fortunate. I've had some very good teams, and full credit goes to them.
Amazing. What an amazing story. Starting, I suppose, at the age of 15, 16, sitting in school and listening to, I suppose, a military advice around kind of your career, all the way up until becoming CEO of the Year for 2024.
If you'd asked me back then where I'd been now, there's no way known. At one stage, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I love sport and I loved writing. So at one stage, I thought that I'd combine the two and be a sports journalist. I thought that'd be amazing. If you said that, I'll have joined the military, served overseas, and worked into technology, and invariably be in the position I am today. Speaking to you, there is no way known I would have even contemplated this.
Well, here we are. Thank you. It's quite an amazing story. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you for listening to today's episode with Kurt Brissett. What we talked about today was Kurt's incredibly interesting story from the military, 15 years, and then his transfer to the private sector, with some really good advice and tips for people that are looking to change sectors and maybe coming up with some struggles in terms of how to get your skills recognized and how to adapt your style towards a new world. We also talked through Kurt's leadership approach from, I suppose, being the age of 22 and leading a large unit, all the way up to how he's applied his learnings to the modern world in the private sector, and also some advice around just general leadership in the IT sector and how to get the best out of your teams underneath you, which I think Kurt's a big advocate for. You are as strong as your team, so empowering, coaching, and mentoring the people underneath you is incredibly important. With that in mind, I'd like to ask you the question that I ask all of my guests, which is, what advice would you give yourself early in your career, if you could?
Yeah, listen, I think it's all about, ultimately, you need to back yourself. I don't think anybody is ever 100% truly ready to take on the next role or next opportunity. But it's about having faith in yourself and having confidence that you're going to give it a damn good job.
Yeah.
You're going to give it a good go, and you are going to work with others, and whilst you may not know everything that there is to know, you have the self-awareness to reach out and to ask and to lean on other individuals within your team and other stakeholders and establish those relationships. You don't have to be the font of all knowledge, because not everybody is going to have been an enterprise architect, a solution architect, a developer, a project manager, working on a help desk, have done every single job or function known across the technology sphere. But what you need is an awareness of what your strengths are. Back yourself that whilst you may not be a subject matter expert in everything, your ability to harness those skills and experience within the team and to just give it a damn good go is generally going to be enough to get you through and to achieve that outcome. And we see so often people not having faith or being concerned about that their background, or that they don't think that they're ready.
Yeah.
And that's so often the case. You see people that have got their skills and the attributes to take that next step, but they don't have confidence in themselves.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
Love that. Thank you, Kurt. Thank you for listening today. As always, please like, comment, and share, and look forward to the next episode of my podcast series coming soon. Thank you.